Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're not going to complain too much tonight.
No, I'm sure there'll be some complaining.
There will be some complaining, but we're actually going to try to do something a little bit different. We're going to try to do more videos dealing with the creation of getting your own stuff out there.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that we used to do often. We'd be invited as guests at conventions, and we would have panels, and we'd talk about sort of the pros and cons of doing it yourself, doing webcomics, for those of you who are interested in comic books like we are, versus going through mainstream publishers.
Yeah.
And, okay, so yeah, I just want to make sure Geeky's here.
I am.
And she's here. She's here. It's late, though. She's kind of tired. You're kind of like,
yeah, you're just running low on money on Fiverr for me today, so.
I'm running low on money. That's right. I can't.
I'm not real. I'm just someone from Fiverr.
I know. Yeah, I hired Geeky off of Fiverr, and she's my virtual wife.
I am.
So, anyway, we had people ask us questions about which way they should go if you're a young creator, and I think it's applicable to both novelists and cartoonists and comic book creators as to whether or not you should do it yourself or go through a publisher.
Well, I think it's going to depend on whether or not you can get a publisher, because it's very difficult to do that, especially in comics.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. We're going to go into kind of how the publishing deal works. Now, when we're talking publishing in comics, we're actually talking about two different things, because you've got the direct market with the companies like Marvel and DC and Dark Horse and IDW and all of those. And that's sort of one thing. But then you've also got book publishers that are publishing graphic novels.
Which is what I'm talking about.
Right, which is what Geeky's talking about.
Because they're the ones who pick up, creator-owned stories and things like that.
Yeah, you're going to be hard-pressed to get a creator-owned title picked up at even IDW or anything like that these days. A lot of times they're just kind of cranking out licensed stuff.
Right.
And if you're working for a company like IDW or Boom, for the most part, unless you've got an arrangement worked out with them, you're probably going to be work for hire. It's not going to be creator-owned, whereas if you're going through a book publisher, they set their graphic novel deals up just like they would any other novel deal, any other book deal. So... yeah, we're talking about, getting into, we'll talk about mainstream publishing first, and then we can kind of talk about independent publishing and some of the, I guess, animosity between the two.
Yeah, I'd focus more on independent publishing, though, because most people are going to be going that route.
Right. And that's partially out of necessity. I think it's out of necessity because the book market is shrinking. Okay, bookstores are closing up. Everybody's kind of going to Amazon to buy books now, and publishers aren't taking as many chances as they used to take. James Patterson writes 3/4 of the books now.
Well, I don't think he writes them. He has people write them.
He's got a team of
he works with them on writing the book.
Right, co-writers. But his name's always the biggest on the cover, so he's kind of become a brand. But, graphic novels have always been kind of a weird thing. Now, they sort of took off in mainstream publishing about 10 years ago, about the time that manga was big, and, Barnes & Nobles and whatnot. They saw a lot of success with manga, so a lot of publishers took a chance on, doing their own graphic novels. And a lot of the earlier graphic novels were sort of manga-inspired, Mera manga, and then they sort of started picking up a lot of independent comics creators. Many of them who worked in webcomics. I think a lot of them worked in webcomics, and they picked them up and they started cutting publishing deals, for these people. And, to Geeky's point, it's very hard to get picked up by a publisher.
Well, you have them picking up only a handful of books a year, and quite frankly, they have their darlings who are in there. Whether they sell and earn out or not, they're same people getting the same deals, and so there might be 2 slots open for a publisher, and you're competing with how many people?
Yeah. So, and that is true. In graphic novels in the kind of the New York publishing scene, which is kind of its own thing. There really only are a couple of dozen like regular cartoonists that do these books, because there are very few slots. Like Scholastic does not publish a lot of graphic novels, but maybe a half a dozen a year, maybe. And it's the same with, they have publishers like First Second Books. First Second, which is part of Macmillan, and they only publish a few books a year, and so it's a very selective, very hard process, very hard to get a book into one of those publishers. And the first step, usually, not always, but usually, is you have to find an agent, to even get your stuff looked at.
Of course, we did it backwards, but yeah.
We did it backwards. We did have an agent. We did pitch books.
We pitched books before we had the agent.
We had pitch books,
which is what got the agent.
Right,
anyway.
right. So anyway, yeah, you know, but for most people, they're gonna have to get a literary agent interested in them to be able to pitch them to one of these publishers, because you know it's just the way the New York publishing scene works. It's you talk about gatekeepers in comic books. It's 100 times worse in the New York publishing scene. You know, 100 times worse it is in, you know, like an IDW or Boom or whatever. So then you've got to have the right book. You got to be the right place, the right time. You got to have the agent. It's got to be a thing they're looking for.
You have to be the right kind of person.
You have to be the right kind of person. And yeah, so you know, it is hard to get the book in there. And then once you actually get the book picked up by the mainstream publisher, well, you're not looking at a lot of money.
No.
Okay, so this is actually, I'm going to pull this up. This is from Comics Alliance, which is actually defunct now. But this is Faith Erin Hicks. Faith Erin Hicks actually has had multiple books through First Second, and she's been doing graphic novels for about 10 years. So she doesn't make a whole lot, or at least at the time she did not make a lot of money. This article was written in 2012, and she talked about her finances, and she basically said that, you know, if it wasn't for the fact that she lived in Canada and had her health care taken care of and, you know, had some grant money, she wouldn't have been able to survive on the advances. So, do you want to chime in about that?
I don't think there's anything else they can say about that.
Okay, so, you know, just to give you an idea.
It is what it is.
Yeah, just to give you an idea of what the advances are for graphic novels. Now, they used to be, I believe they used to be 15 to 25,000 for first graphic novel.
Not for a long time.
Not for a long time. And it depends on publisher. That I think is Scholastic. Used to be around 15 to 25,000 for a first book. We're hearing now, we actually had friends come to us and say that they were offering like $5,000 for advances.
Yeah.
So an advance, if you're not familiar with an advance is an advance against royalties, which basically means they're giving you some of your money up front for the book, and you have to pay it back before you get your profits.
But you're talking 2 or 3 years on a book with $5,000.
Right. So if you can survive for 2 or 3 years, if you can survive for 2 or 3 years on $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is, like this article here from The Beat, graphic novelist quits making graphic novels after trying to live on $10,000 a year for 3 years. You can do that. Go for it. Absolutely. You know, and your miles may vary. But, you know, there are some people who have been successful at it, but, you know, it's very hard. It's very hard. So, okay, so the problem with it, now the benefit of going through a traditional publisher, obviously, is it opens up distribution channels. You know, you can get your stuff into, like, all the bookstores. They handle most of the marketing for you. Most of the marketing for you.
I think that depends on your deal.
Okay. Some of the marketing for you? Because
I know, like, there's a reason why sometimes you see somebody with a graphic novel deal and they're in every, like, book order, every whatever, and you're seeing other people without a book, you know, with a book too, and they don't have that, because I think that your agent works some of that into the deal.
Yeah, so not all deals are created equal, and it depends on the agent. But then, you know, and people are like, okay, so they're like, oh, I'll go to the publisher and they'll take care of everything for me. That doesn't happen. Actually, most people will tell you, if you get your book picked up, whether it's a novel or a graphic novel, make sure you save some of the money back from marketing and promotion. And there are companies, there are firms out there that specialize specifically in promoting, you know, comic books or fantasy novels or whatever. And they're not cheap.
No.
So you could get your $10,000 advance, and then you're going to have to turn around, and if you have an agent, give your agent 15 to 20% of that, and then turn around and probably give a publicist another $2,000 or $3,000 just for a basic campaign.
Oh, it's more than $2,000 or $3,000.
You know, I said just for like a basic campaign. So the companies don't, a lot of these publishers don't do as much promotion. You know, they kind of expect you to, and I think now they pick people up based on their following. I think the reason you're seeing so many of these, like, you know, Tumblr artists or whatever getting picked up is it was pitched like, oh, look at their massive audience.
Yeah, well, the problem with that is I've seen all these books come out, and now some of these companies are struggling because they're not selling. Because they're picking up the wrong kinds of books. I mean, it's great for getting an Eisner, but you can wipe your butt with that because it's not actually making any money. Because, you know, you're not selling the books. I mean, not like Eisners with toilet paper. I'm just saying, you know, that's great that you have an Eisner winning whatever on the cover, but most people don't even know what that is or care.
Right, and that's just it. It's like it's not translating into dollars. And same with like, you know, with the just anybody that has like a massive audience. If you've got a huge audience of the wrong people, you know, it doesn't mean that they're gonna buy your stuff.
I'm just saying, a lot of these people are picking up, and what gets me the most, I think the biggest category we're seeing this in is the young adult or the middle grade novels, and they're picking up these books that are not going to be something that these parents are going to buy for their kids.
Right.
And it's not going to be something that a lot of these kids are going to want to buy. It's great that you're saying, look at this progressive book we're doing, but people aren't going to buy it. I'm sorry, they're just not.
Yeah.
That's not judging or being mean. I'm just saying, as a parent and a teacher, and I see it all the time, it's going to end up in the dollar bin at the book fair, because I see it all the time.
Yeah, and we'll and Geeky actually, she ran those.
I ran book fairs for a while.
So we'll talk about you know, the kind of the best. Well, here I can show you. This is BookScan. Okay, BookScan is the sort of the Nielsen. Well, it is Nielsen's. They keep track of all the book sales in the country. You know, most of the major outlets or whatever, and you can see, you know, what sells and what doesn't sell. This is the year-to-date total. This is 2017. This is for the year. This is the number of copies. So the most popular graphic novel, according to BookScan 2017, was Dogman Unleashed.
I can assure you that is true, because when I was working at the schools and working book fairs, kids were nuts about Dogman, like crazy nuts about him.
Yeah.
I think Ghost Drama, Smile, and Sisters do well because they promote the hell out of it in the book fairs and in the book orders. Yeah,
and that we can talk about that a little bit too. The New York Times used to have a graphic novel bestseller list, comics and graphic novel bestseller list, which I think this was actually during, you know, when that was still around. They pulled the plug on it like a year or so ago because they didn't think the graphic novels really were big enough to warrant their own list anymore. And a lot of cartoonists, you know, freaked out because they're like, this is going to hurt sales. And then sales did go down like 12% the following year. But yeah, Scholastic definitely pushes Rena Telgemeier books. You can see
they push her like crazy.
She pretty much, she's on like of the top 20, she's probably half of them because Scholastic pushes her harder than anybody else. But you can see that the number of copies. I mean, now to give you an idea of dollar amounts, whatever their advance was, and I can't say, you know, what the advances were on these books, but just figure on average, most of these people are probably going to get about $1 a book profit. So, you know, obviously Dogman, you're going to sell 400,000 copies of Dogman. That's, you know, $400,000, probably at minimum. I mean, he might actually be getting more money than that.
Right.
Plus, you know, you've got movie deals, but that's actually you know, where most of these people want to go with it. Like, they'll take the loss on the graphic novel. They're not going to get rich on the graphic novel because they want the movie deals. That's really the end game for most of these people.
Yeah, totally.
So, you know, again, you know, this isn't a bad way to do comics if you can get in.
If you can get in.
If you can get in. Like I said, now it is harder because I think there are fewer opportunities for cartoonists to break in, because it seems like you know, the mainstream publishers aren't putting as many graphic novels out as they used to.
I just thought it was funny when you had that list up. Dogman is beating everybody. Now, these people are picking up these really, you know, totally progressive books that, you know, and Dogman is kicking all their asses because Dogman is what kids want.
Yeah, I mean, really for kids' graphic novels, it's kind of like just keep it simple, you know, keep it simple. And some of these books, I know, you know, they've been pushed in Walmart and stuff. You know, very few first, second books are up there. You know, March obviously was a big one for Top Shelf because it dealt with, you know, civil rights movement. It got a lot of buzz, you know, in mainstream media. But, you know, some of them are just perennial bestsellers.
Well, I think First Second's problem is they keep picking it. When I say one place particularly is really picking the wrong things, I'm referring to First Second.
They have a few, you know, yeah. And I'm
just going to flat out say
but they have a few. I mean, they have some hits or perennial favorites. I mean, you look at like American Born Chinese,
right,
which has been a hit for like 10 years now.
Right. So what I'm saying is the new stuff they're picking up, this has not always been the case. They had some good stuff, but lately, as of late, last couple of years, the stuff I'm seeing them put out, I'm like, as a mom and a teacher, I'm like, this isn't going to fly. I don't know what you were thinking, but, you know, whatever. Kudos to you, looking for that Eisner. I can wipe your butt with.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of this is they publish the books, I think, you know, to get those props, which again, I think.
But most people don't care about that.
No, the librarians do, and the literary world does, and graphic novels, you know, from mainstream publishers are treated more like a literary, you know, masterpiece than they are comic books.
But meanwhile, Dogman's still kicking all their asses.
Meanwhile, Dogman's still on top. Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Dogman's on top.
Yeah.
Dog
So I'm
Man's
like,
on top.
that's great. You got an Eisner that you know, you sold 20,000 copies of a book and you got an Eisner for it, but Dog Man kicked your ass. So what's the point?
Well, no, the point of that is it actually shows you that what the critics push for and what the general public wants.
That's my point.
Yeah, or a lot of times are two totally different things. And
That's the point I've been making.
I know, but no, I'm saying we're seeing this in independent publishing too, where, you know, especially with a lot of Kickstarters and Indiegogos, where the mainstream comic book publishing cabal is sort of caught off guard by the success stories. And this is not new. This isn't just something that popped up with the situation with Comicsgate.
Oh, no. This has been going on for years.
This has been going on with... We'll talk...
I mean, the things they've been picking lately, though, have been really out there. And I'm like, why would you... What? Why would you pick that? Dog Man's going to kick its ass.
Yeah, because it's a very simple concept.
Are you here to make money? Are you here to, like, pander and try to win awards for something that's really progressive? Because Dog Man's going to kick your ass.
Yeah, Dog Man's still going to kick your ass.
Kids
want Dog Man. They want Dog Man. They don't want...
Prior to that, Captain Underpants.
Captain Underpants. Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it's going to... And Diary of a Wimpy Kid. They're all going to kick
Nate,
your ass.
Wimpy Kid. Yeah, Wimpy Kid, they don't even...
Dork Diaries. Daughter loves those.
Yeah, they sell a ridiculous amount of books.
And it's not Shakespeare, and it's not, you know, super progressive either. Go ahead.
So I want to, yeah, and that's it. It's not like, fine art or anything like that. Now I want to go back a few years, and people who are just getting into comics now and getting into independent comics now and publishing right now probably won't remember when Kickstarter and crowdfunding really first started to take off.
Yeah, it's not a new thing.
No, this is not a new thing. 6 or 7-ish years ago, maybe 8 years ago, a lot of the publishers, and we talked about the gatekeepers kind of freaking out. Okay.
Yes, because they always freak out when they're threatened.
They do, and they freaked out. They freaked out on independent comics publishers.
Yes.
In fact, there was sort of almost like I mean, I hate to say it, but there's almost like a campaign against Kickstarter books.
Yes. The campaigns against things is not a new thing.
This is not a new concept. So we're going to take you in the way back machine here. Now we talked about First Second being this reputable graphic novel publisher. Now they were a little butthurt back in the day when
There's so much that they use the word kerfuffle.
Kerfuffle,
You have to be butthurt to use the word kerfuffle.
So this is going back to 2012. They were upset that independent cartoonists were going to Kickstarter to launch their books instead of going to them first. Basically, the publishers felt like
they're not going to take anybody, so what's the point?
Right. The publishers felt like you should be going to them, that they should always get the first pick of projects
sure
first.
The early Kickstarters were people who went to them first,
yes,
and then got rejection letters if they got any answer whatsoever, and then they're like, screw this.
Yeah, so this was sort of First Second coming out against Kickstarter because, to be completely honest, and we'll go over some of the numbers of the Kickstarters that made ridiculous money. A lot of them were earlier Kickstarters. There was a lot more money to be made in Kickstarter for a lot of people doing independent comics than there was, you know, going through First Second or Scholastic or whoever. Again, the only real benefit was to the possibility of possibly getting like a movie deal or something out of any of them. If you get a movie deal, it doesn't mean that it's going to get made. It means that they might sit on it for 10 years, you know, and not make your book or not make your movie. So publishing versus Kickstarter, taking on a different part of the internet's Kickstarter kerfuffle.
She told you.
Yeah, we'll start with this. The end result of Kickstarter is that cool cartoonists whose work we personally admire, and possibly some other people too, are getting money to do projects that they really want to do. How neat is that? We approve of people getting money to make great comics 100%. Money plus comics. It's like mocha and Nutella. Two great tastes that taste great together, but blah, 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 blah. So sometimes there pops up a project on Kickstarter where an author's like, okay, I'm publishing a graphic novel. It's 200 pages long. It'll take me 2 more years to complete after this point, and you should all support it. And sometimes I'm like, huh, that looks like something that we wouldn't publish at all because zombies are exploding whilst having sex. And sometimes I'm like, huh, we didn't get this charming and interesting project in our submissions box.
Well, you now are publishing things that I don't understand why you're publishing at all. And I guarantee you people didn't submit to you because they probably tried before and you didn't get back to them.
Somebody, yeah, and Steve Lieber actually, who's a pretty well-regarded cartoonist, made the comment, and this is years ago. But they're basically like, I mean, I know publishers are terribly frightening and occasionally mean, but sometimes it's just like, Kickstarter creator, didn't you at least want to check out, see if someone would give you $20,000 to publish that book? And then
they don't give you $20,000.
Not anymore.
And not for a second.
No. And then you won't have to print or mail your graphic novel to 1,500 people. So there weren't a whole lot of comments on here, but Steve Lieber jumped in, and I actually agree with him on this. He said, "Thanks for these insights. My curiosity is killing me, and I have to ask, these cartoonists who made you say we didn't get this charming and interesting project in our submission box, did you follow up by contacting them and inviting them to pitch a project? Could you have offered to publish the current book? This recently happened with Kickstarter for a game, Dive Kick, yada yada." Yeah, you know, First Second only puts out like maybe 6 to 10 graphic novels a year, and how many people want to make books?
And a lot of them are the recurrent perennial ones that they aren't doing new ones of. So
right, and it's
they're not taking
very, very few people. I mean, you know, actually get in. Like if you go to their current catalog, you're gonna see that they don't publish a lot of stuff. I mean, they really don't. They publish a couple books every season, but you know, the reason that people were kind of going, now this is real quick here. Just talk about the kerfuffle. This is coming from the Comics Journal again. You know, bastion of intellectual comic book talk. They're always pro indie, and they basically down here at the bottom compare Kickstarter to e-begging. They consider it and it's like, get this. Finally, Kickstarter. Guess what? You don't get to call yourself underground if you're on Kickstarter, and guess what else? You don't get to call yourself a publisher either. You're just someone who pays a printing bill, takes pre-orders on your site, sells your boots, do what you have to do, but don't go begging for money so that you can give 5% to Amazon.com. A couple years later, Fantagraphics Books, which is the Comics...
I remember when they were doing it.
Comics Journal went out and did their own Kickstarter just to basically stay in business. I'm just saying. This was the attitude just a few years ago toward crowdfunding. And the reason that a lot of people were going to Kickstarter back in the day especially was because there was way more money. These are the most funded comic book projects on Kickstarter. Order of the Stick is still, now they don't put the dollar amounts up like they used to. You have to dig into it. $1.2 million Order of the Stick. We've got Control Alt Delete, which I think is a newer one. 660, yeah, I mean, yeah, $665,000. You know, I mean, most of these, at least on this page, are over $200,000 Kickstarters. So it's really interesting that you know, the old guard of the comic book industry was like, don't do Kickstarter, come to us, let us turn you down, let us turn you down, let us tell you no. You know, cartoonists still persist. They just didn't end run, and we're seeing this now. You know, obviously with the current crop of Indiegogo books coming out, that you know, it doesn't matter if publishers tell you no, you can still do it.
That's the point. That's where we were heading with this. Right. I hope.
Yeah, that's where we're heading with it.
I was like,
so
20 minutes later.
No. I'm just trying to give some background here, just to let people know that you know, this is not a new thing. The comic book industry, the publishing industry, has always sort of been anti-indie, because yeah, why you know, there's nothing in it for them. They want to control the market. They want a cut of everything that's sold, and they want to dictate what gets put out there. So yeah, of course they're going to be like, no, don't do it yourself. Give that pitch to us so we can turn you down and discourage you.
Well, you know, agents do that too. We know for a fact.
Agents do that too. They are a gatekeeper. So where do we want to go with this? We want to go, we want to talk about the games that are played in the publishing industry.
Let's talk about doing your own stuff first. Then you can talk about that, because I think that was kind of the point people wanted to know. What do I do if I want to create my own things? Right. And instead, you just wasted 20 minutes talking about all that.
I didn't waste 20 minutes.
Yes, you did. Go ahead.
Okay, so if you want to publish your own book now, I mean, really, I think you know, doing a webcomic is probably still the best way to go. That would be my own personal.
Only because you're building a platform that you can then spin into, you know, people that support you. But that's hard now too anymore.
Yeah, webcomics have really gotten locked down too. Now a lot of those early Kickstarters were actually, they were webcomics, and you know, now it's a little bit harder. That most of those comics were webcomics that were hosted on their own site, and now it's really, really hard to host a webcomic on your own site and get seen, because there used to be things like Project Wonderful. We talked about that before, where you could pay to promote your comic on other people's comic sites, and a lot of people just are opting not to self-host their comic anymore. They're using Tumblr, they're using sites like webtoons or Tapastic, or Tapas or whatever they're called now.
Tapas,
yeah, and that's how they're publishing their comic. They're doing them on Instagram. I've seen people do comics on Instagram. You know, obviously DeviantArt, all these other places, and they're not really doing comics on their own site anymore. But the point is, you need to get your stuff out there on social media, really, to build an audience. And this is why the Indiegogo campaigns now that you're seeing are so popular, because these guys are building up audiences on YouTube.
Right.
They're cross promoting each other, and again, they're building up that online fan base, and that's something that used to be done in webcomics. It still can be done, but it's a lot harder now.
Right.
I think, than it was.
Yes and no. I mean, the one thing about webtoons that's great is there's already a huge audience over there. Where before you had to find your own, but there's so much competition. You really have to stand out. But okay, say you get a comic and you want to publish it, besides being on here. The difference is when you're self-publishing it, you have different options. You can either go do a print on demand and print books and take them to like a show, or put them on Amazon or whatever you want to do that, and just pay per book, which is more expensive.
Yeah.
Or you can do a print run, and that's when it costs more money. That's what people usually go to Kickstarter for, because it costs like, you know, thousands of dollars to do a print run with lots of books. Where Create Space or places like that, you can go and just do a few books.
Right. So we're looking, Create Space. Now that's actually owned by Amazon. A lot of people have been using it. It's great for print on demand, which is, you know, if someone wants to just buy a copy of your book, they can buy a copy of your book. Now the books aren't as high a quality as one that you're going to get, you know, published through a,
there's other places
book publisher
too.
Yeah, it's not just that. Lightning Source is another one. Create Space is probably the biggest. They only do soft cover though. Lightning Source does hardcover. And let me look up Lightning Source.
Hardcover is going to cost you a lot of money, so if I were you, I'd stick to paper. Soft cover.
Yeah, if you
Just
can.
saying.
Yeah, hardcovers are very expensive. So again, you know, Lightning Source, they're part of Ingram, which is a book distributor. Some advantages there, and this is sort of a whirlwind tour of the different options. There are publishers, or there are printers out there that specialize just in publishing floppy comics, in publishing you know, different.
So you have lots of options. So the days where you had to have tens of thousands of dollars to get a print run done and have, you know, all that is not an issue now. I mean, you could do. There's different ways you can do it.
Yeah, this is one that actually specializes in single issues, mix them, and they do a really good job. We got some samples; they're pretty cool. So, yeah, you know, the days of, you know, just having, you know, one or two options are over. I think it's anybody can make comic books as long as you have an audience that's willing to buy. You know,
or if you wanted to start and print on your own money, print them up and then take them to shows and stuff, you can. I mean, you don't have to. You don't need their permission to do it.
No, the only place where it gets sticky is distribution. I think if you want to get into Diamond, that's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother show. Diamond is very, very hard to get into. You have to have sufficient demand to get into Diamond.
You have to have more than one book, and it has to, you know, it's like a over time thing. Yeah,
if you're gonna put like one graphic novel out every 3 years, and you're only gonna sell like 300 copies of that graphic novel, you know, Diamond's probably not gonna pick you up.
I wouldn't recommend it.
No, they're just not going to. So. It's getting harder and harder. There are fewer comic shops, so it's starting to, you know, those options are kind of drying up a little bit too. So, and that's one thing, you know, I love about what Pierce Meddy is doing with Alterna is he's trying to find other options, other avenues to sell comics.
Right, and not in just the same places that everybody else is, because you need to think outside the box.
Right. So the benefits of self-publishing versus, you know, going through the system. Well, the system one, you're gonna have a really hard time getting in, and that's not to say it's impossible. It's not impossible. Obviously, people are doing it, but you're gonna have to have the right product at the right time. The conditions have to be right. The stars have to align. Whatever the deal is. Whereas if you self-publish, you can pretty much put out whatever kind of material you want to put out.
Right. With
minimal editorial interference, although I would recommend hiring an editor.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, please hire an editor. But you will have minimal editorial interference. And if you want to put out whatever kind of comic you want to put out, as long as people are willing to pay for it and buy it, you can do it.
Right.
You know, you don't have to go through a committee. You can
don't let them stop you, because they're not going to.
Nope.
Not today. Not today, damn it.
Not today. Not today. Some days, though, they try.
Some days they try, but not today.
Some days they try. So that's, I mean, I think right now the future, you know, of comic books personally, and Geeky and I talk about this all the time, but I really think the future's in indie. I think the future's in indie.
I think it has to be at this point. I think once upon a time, everybody could have worked together, and it would have been, like I said to you earlier, I think once upon a time, if everybody wants the same things, they don't want comics to stop, everyone wants comics to continue, and they want comic shops to stay in business, the smart thing to do would be understand that there are different types of comics out there for different types of audiences.
Right.
And the more you can have out there that would attract audiences to the shops to buy, the better for everyone. Apparently that is not what some people wanted, and it's causing a problem. And comics are for everybody, but only for certain everybody's.
Yeah, I don't think that it has to be an either or. I think,
No.
you know, I appreciate publishers trying to grow their audience. They need to grow their audience, but you don't grow one audience at the expense of spurning another one.
Or if you're a publisher, that's your audience you're focusing on. It's to your benefit to have other publishers focusing on their audiences, because then they're all going to the shops, and someone might come in, look for their book, and see yours, and be like, "Oh, you know what? I never read one of those. That might be good." You know what I'm saying?
I got an extra $5. I'm going to pick up a copy of this
too. It just
too.
seems counterintuitive to do this, but it's like I said to you with the soap. I say it again. I love it because it's my favorite analogy. But like you see the soap operas, and there's this one girl, and she's in love with the hot guy, but he's got a girlfriend. So she kills the girlfriend because, don't you know, if the girlfriend's dead, suddenly he's going to love her. Doesn't mean he's going to love her. It just means she's a bad person. And you got rid of the competition. Doesn't mean that he's going to go, pick her.
Yeah.
Same with comics. You can get rid of the competition. Doesn't mean that they're going to sell more of your books.
Right. Actually, what happens a lot of times is, we're seeing this happen where, you try to shrink the comic book industry to narrow it down to the readership that you want. Shops close, which means that fewer comics overall are being sold. The industry is less sustainable. And if the industry is less sustainable, then that's fewer comics for everybody. For everybody. It hurts everybody. If the industry shrinks, it hurts everybody. But the industry is also competing with this,
Well,
too.
I was going to say, but the great thing about this is there something for everybody. They're webcomics, and you know what? And for years, everybody got along. It was amazing. Somebody could be doing a book about, superheroes, and somebody's over here doing a high fantasy book, and somebody over here is doing a romance book, and somebody here is doing whatever. And everybody kind of just got along because it was different. We all knew we had different audiences. There's something for everyone. And that's what I love about webcomics. If you want a reader, there's something for everybody.
Yeah, webcomics was, it was very much, it was kind of the Wild West of comics.
It's fun.
It's fun, but I miss it because once webcomics sort of, attracted more mainstream attention, then it just sort of became like another arm of traditional publishing. Like webtoons, I'm not going to knock too hard against webtoons, but they built their audience up mostly on young creators, aspiring creators, and now they're bringing in this
kind of makes me mad.
This one's done by Warren Ellis and Colleen Duran. You're talking like mainstream. Mainstream artists who are coming in now and sort of benefiting from the
and all the people that signed up, because these people, this what makes me mad is these people spent their money to promote their comic, and people come in using advertising their comic on webtoons, bringing readers in. They went to all the trouble. They brought their friends and family.
They brought their own audiences.
They brought their audiences
from,
in,
DeviantArt
and then after they got this mailing list and all these people, they got this huge platform. Then they started paying people that are mainstream people who honestly don't translate well to webcomics.
No.
They're paying them to come in, and then of course they're gonna have a lot of followers because they send it out to every one of their subscribers. Everybody. If you're a member of Webtoons, you get this email saying about check us out. So of course you're going to have a react. Even if 10% of people like it, that's still a lot of people, because 10% of a lot of people is a lot of people.
Oh yeah, and they push it. If anybody's got the app installed, it's as soon as they have. Yeah, so it's sort of an unfair advantage. It is what it is.
Bullshit is what it is.
Look, it's their business model. They can do with it whatever they want. But Webtoons, I remember when they were begging for independent creators to come to their platform. They had all kinds of contests. Well, they're doing contests again, which I thought was interesting. But they were begging for creators to go to their platform, so creators went to their platform, and they built up the platform. Like Geeky said, they were bringing their audiences with them, if it was from DeviantArt or whatever. And they built it up into this massive portal that pretty much, I'll be honest, Webtoons pretty much put standalone webcomics out of business, because it didn't make sense anymore to host your own site when you could go Webtoons and there was already an audience built in. So they kind of helped kill off independent, self-hosted webcomics, and now they're using the platform because they're connected with some talent agency out in LA, and they're trying to do movie deals because, again,
So
that's the end goal for
the ones that are
everybody.
getting pushed to the front are the people that already had publishing deals that they're giving them money to come over here.
Right.
And the thing is, they weren't selling crap when they were over there. Why do you think they're going to do better over here? I do not know. But, you know.
Yeah, but we've got a lot of, familiar, like, Marvel, DC names that are, that are working on webtoons now. It's just, I don't
And
know.
of course, the numbers, you're like, wow, that's a lot of people like it. When they send it out, every time there's a new one up to every person on their app and list, of course, they're going to get a lot of people coming in to read it. It's just,
Yeah.
So Webtoons is great if you want to start out because there's a built-in audience. The downside is that everybody came to do their audience, to build up their audience, and then they turn around and kind of...
Yeah, and this is kind of how they sold it to creators, too. I mean, again, it is what it is, but, they were like, hey, creators, come to Webtoons, and we'll give you some Patreon money if you hit a certain threshold. I think they started it again, but the threshold's way
ridiculous.
higher.
Yeah,
it's way higher now because they were giving money to like everybody. Well, everybody.
No,
had
you had to hit threshold, and we did then.
But they used to pick their comics. And I don't know if they still are because we haven't really kept on top of it. But they used to pick their comics out of Discover. They used to have like if a comic was really popular on their Discover platform, then they would promote them to paid, and you get a couple $1,000s a month.
Right, but they also go out and they've been for a while now because whoever they put in charge was a Marvel person.
Yeah.
They've been going out and finding these people that are Marvel or DC people that they knew that were pros and giving them gigs. And then they're not. They start hiding the numbers though, because when the numbers were up, there were these people that were like, well, they were a big deal over here. They're a big publishing person. They had crap numbers on Webtoons. They were getting their asses kicked, but then they hid the numbers.
Well, on the paid comics, they're hiding the numbers. Yeah. Now, so it's. But Webtoons, right now, I'm not going to say don't do it because...
No, I think you should definitely
I think you should. It's basically become the YouTube...
You might have the chance to be one of these people.
Yeah, it's basically become the YouTube of webcomics right now.
Definitely do it.
It's so hard to start your own webcomic. It's so hard to have your own, to do a self-hosted comic anymore.
Well, I guess my point is, go ahead and do it, but understand, where back when you used to have your own comics on your own page, you get ad money and things. There, you're not going to get that here.
No, if you hit a certain threshold, now I'm not sure what their requirement.
You might not get anything out of it until you decide later to sell your own books.
Yeah, they're doing it again, but they made the so you might get a couple $100s a month or something.
What are the thresholds?
I don't know what the thresholds are now. I'll have to look. I'll have to look into it.
Because we used to get money.
We did. We actually used to get paid pretty well, but we stopped updating when they took the money away. So
because we're like, why
should we? There's no incentive in here, but this is a good way again to build an audience. Now, I've heard multiple things because I know people who do really well on Webtoons, and then they try, like, you look at their Patreons outside of Webtoons, they're not getting a whole lot of money because a lot of people, that's sort of the downside with webcomics is they want free content. They always want free content.
Right, it's a problem.
And so when or they're younger, they're high school, college kids, and then when you ask them to buy a book or you ask them to give the Patreon, they don't do it.
Yeah,
they don't do it.
That's
and
true.
So again, having 10 paying customers is worth more than having 100,000 freeloaders. I mean, to be honest, but if you have 100,000 freeloaders, your chances of finding more paying customers increases.
You can leverage 100,000 freeloaders to say I have this huge fan base, give me a publishing deal.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I mean, that's what you're saying. I'm just translating.
Yeah. So now we can talk about. Can we talk about the I guess, do we want to talk about the gatekeepers in publishing and some of the
Maybe
stuff?
we should have another show because
Yeah,
we're running long.
Yeah, we kind of are. So I guess, I don't know. There are advantages to both, to publishing through a traditional publisher. Obviously, you have a better chance of, if you don't have a platform already, of getting that platform by attaching yourself to either a publisher that's established or working on like a Spider-Man book or something like that.
Right.
But if you want to do your own stuff, it's gonna be really hard. It's gonna be really hard to do your own stuff. You're probably gonna have to do it on your own. And that's just kind of the way the comic book industry is going now, I think.
Right. But I do want to say, if you're going to do it on your own, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun at the same time. And if you're just somebody who wants to read comics, Webtoons is a really good place to find all kinds of cool things. Webcomics in general, you can pretty much find anything you want. There is a really good comic on Webtoons you should read called Shadowbinders.
Yeah.
Not that I'm biased or anything.
Yeah, we need to find it. We need to update it. But yeah, I mean, there's some people who are doing really well on it. But again, this comes back to, why are people doing so well on YouTube and on DeviantArt and on, it's because they've got that online platform. They've got the audience. And frankly, webtoons, YouTube, DeviantArt, Tumblr, they all reach way more people than the shrinking North American direct market.
Yes.
You know, so you have a better chance of finding people to support your work. But the flip side of that is the direct market, at least you know those people are actually buying comic books.
And at least they're going to put marketing behind it for you.
And they're going to put marketing behind it.
And they're going to be in stores and, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know.
Yeah, I can't tell you what to do. We've been on both sides of it. I would say, at least with comic books, given the dollar amounts that we're aware of on the publishing side of things, I think it makes more sense to self-publish.
Yeah.
Because you probably are not going to get, I mean, unless you're like 1 in a million like Raina Telgemeier, you're probably not going to get anything approaching big bucks.
No.
Going through a publisher. And it's going to be very hard, and you're going to get very frustrated because there are very few slots, you know. So.
Yes, there are.
Okay, got any closing thoughts here, Geeky?
No. If you have stories, make them. Just make them. I mean, everybody keeps saying, like, oh, I can't do it. I'm too scared. You know what? Just make them. I mean, you don't have to put them up. If you're worried about putting them up, don't put them up. Just make them, practice. Then till you get to something that you really feel will reach people and you think will do well, and then put that one up. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, just practice until you feel like, I mean, you don't have to be show ready. You don't have to, and that's the great thing about webcomics. Like, you don't have to be you know, even commercially viable. You can build an audience, and then when your work gets good enough and you want to start making books to sell,
right?
You know, you can do that, and just use webcomics as practice. You know, so you know, but you gotta start. If you're gonna start making comics, you're gonna start making animation. You have to start somewhere,
right? And
you're not going to get better unless you start today.
I agree.
Or tomorrow if you need to sleep or something. But
I agree. As soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay, so are we done?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to wrap this one up. Subscribe to Clownfish TV for more art videos, for more pop culture news, views, and rants, gaming videos. What do we feel like posting that day? Shira rants. You know, we complain because it means a lot to you.
That's right.
That's why we complain.
We complain because we care.
We complain because we care. Okay, this has been Neon and Geeky.
Yep.
Goodbye.